Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Jake, this is Nadia, this is Buddy, this is Sedona, and Babu Miracle is downstairs. Today we are talking about two horror movies. These are pretty recent movies that we didn't really know when to review or how to discuss them. We saw them streaming, so one is great and one is not so great. You can be the judge of that, I guess, and we'll get into it. The first movie we're going to talk about is called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. It's an A24 horror movie that a lot of people have been talking about. Came out a year or two ago. And then another one is more recent called The Pope's Exorcist. Let's just get into it and talk about these two movies. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. What did you think? Go ahead.
So many freaking bodies. Oh, okay. So basically, I really like this film. Right off the bat, I would rate it 7 out of 10.
Okay.
And for me, that's average. The reason why I like it is because the ending was not what you think that it would be. It was very unexpected. I really loved the humor in it all. And really, like, we both made predictions and we were both wrong about the way it was going to go. Pete Davidson was really good and funny.
Yeah, it was like a murder mystery with a twist, obviously.
It did remind me of the other movie that we just watched with A24.
Talk to Me?
Talk to Me, exactly. And it had similar vibes with like
Similar.
college type kids, like more party.
It was a Gen Z horror movie, I'd say.
Yeah.
More appealing to Gen Z audiences.
Well, that one was a real
actors.
horror film. This was more like
It's like a horror comedy.
Horror comedy or
And
maybe
social
like a
satire.
Yeah, thriller.
Yeah, satire, thriller, murder mystery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was more like a murder mystery, I would say. Yeah, and a lot of pieces in there, a lot of things to go forward to. I don't really have too much else to say about with the non-spoiler. I would really rather talk about the spoiler section for Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Besides the obvious bodies, what would you say, non-spoiler?
I thought it was really great. It was entertaining. I thought that, it did the sort of eat the rich kind of satire that we come to expect from certain movies like The Menu, like Glass Onion. But I thought this one was really good because it was kind of over the top and silly at certain points, but also had this like emotional heart. It did have some scary moments. The only issue I had with the movie was I felt like the lighting was just kind of a lot of it was just lit through phone lights because in the movie the power goes out, so they're just kind of going around with their phone lights. So some things were hard to look at, sort of, but it was just really fun getting to guess who the killer is and who's going to be killed. And it was like an Agatha Christie murder mystery, but with like Gen Z stereotypes. You have the people who are self-obsessed, you have the rich people, you have the newcomer who isn't rich and is having to deal with all of this. And Pete Davidson is in it. I thought he was pretty funny. Rachel Sennett is very funny in it. It was just a good ensemble. Yeah, I think it just is a good sign. I'm excited for the next movie this filmmaker does.
What would you rate it?
I'd give it a 7.5.
Oh, wow. Rated it higher than me.
Yeah. It was really successful. Like, it really had me guessing. We were both, like, really interested. I wouldn't say it was really scary, but
I don't think it's meant to be really scary,
yeah, it was more of a murder mystery kind of thing. And with some ridiculous moments, things just keep going over the top. There's a lot of satire and making fun of the rich. It's
really funny, too.
It was way more successful, I think, than The Menu, because it felt like there was more going on with it than just a critique of the rich or saying like the rich people are bad. It was more about the characters of sense of mistrust and people just kind of like eating each other apart. And it just had that a very satisfying ending as well. So yeah, would you like to get into spoilers? We're going into spoilers for Bodies, 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 but if you don't want the spoilers, I'll put a timestamp for when to go to the Pope's Exorcist.
Okay, spoilers for Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
All right. So the killer was...
No one. Pete Davidson, was messing around with his own knife.
With a machete.
Machete, yeah.
Trying to chop off a bottle of champagne and
which
chops his
is
neck.
a trick that he saw from this other guy. So there was this like masculinity, like masculine kind of energy competition.
Yeah.
I think where he saw someone else do it and he wanted to do it too, and ends up killing himself. But because of the way that his dying body presented itself as if he was being murdered, then everyone else was like, who's done it? And then what happens is they just end up killing themselves off. And the two characters who remain are the characters that we start out with. They discover a phone which has a recorded video of Pete Davidson trying to film himself to do this his trick, which ends up obviously going horribly. But it's just interesting, like how this whole time we're searching for someone, being paranoid just to get everyone to kill themselves.
They set it up really well. There's so many good red herrings where you think, oh, it has to be this person. And they're like, oh, no, it's definitely this person.
No, yeah. I love like some of the jokes. Like I love like when someone calls someone else a psychopath and then they say, that's an ableist thing to say. I also loved when really they think the only other guy there was like a big army guy, when they say that he's a vet, but really he meant the veterinarian.
Yeah.
And
so they murder him.
Yeah. And
I mean, they all just start killing each other. It's fantastic, because they just are so paranoid and they actually hate each other. They're friends, but they all actually hate each other.
It's like a toxic mean girl gossip group.
Yeah, it's like a toxic friend group.
They really played it along as if there's going to be one killer, and slowly as every person dies, we as the audience were thinking okay, so it has to be one of those three, it has to be one of those four, and really they keep dying off. And then when it becomes a two character at the end, you think like one of them is going to kill the other, when it's just like the revelation. I also like that with A24, the beginning really shows a lot of what's going to happen at the end. So for example, everyone's in the water just chilling out, and trying to hold their breath and see who can be at the bottom the longest. And then at the end, there's a struggle with the two girls from the beginning really struggling to get each other's phone, or get like a phone to see if basically if the main girl cheated on her girlfriend. But really that's how they end up finding like the phone, Pete Davidson's phone. But I like how it all ties together in a circle, which is why I really like A24 film, is that you kind of see the hint. I won't go into the spoiler for Talk to Me, but there's a scene in the beginning that's also played out at the end, in a hallucination scene. It's really like tied up very well together, and I don't think it's cringy, even though I think like some of these films, when you're trying to aim a film that's more marketed towards Gen Z, it could be very cringy because it could clearly show like you're making fun of Gen Z as if they're dumb.
But it clearly came from like a knowing perspective.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
Self-aware kind
not of. Like, and it didn't show. It didn't feel like it was like an adult who was like a boomer.
Oh, young people are dumb.
About it. Yeah, exactly, and that's what I mean. Sometimes it can come off like that. Like
no, it came off people are very aware of the stuff going on with
and making fun of yourself, kind of thing. Making fun of your generation, kind of thing. So
yes.
Yeah.
I want to say, however, one of my favorite lines was when these two women are arguing about how wealthy they are, and one of them says, "You didn't grow up poor. You were upper middle class. Your parents are university professors." And then she says, "It's a public school."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But this just kind of like bickering it was almost like Twitter conversations, Twitter arguments.
Or the podcast, like, you hate my podcast. It's so much work.
Yeah, so it's very online of a movie, but that's kind of what you have to expect coming in. But yeah, really liked it. Anything else to say?
No, that basically sums it up. It's a great movie. Watch it.
Recommended.
Yes.
All right. Now, let's turn our focus to a movie that I was not so fond of called The Pope's Exorcist.
Ooh, I wasn't fond of this one either.
Okay, what did you think? Tell me.
Well, right off the bat, I rated 3 out of 10. And
oh, wow, that's low.
Yeah, because it's Russell Crowe, I expected more, and that's why I watched it. But it was really just kind of like trying to make it like a big Russell Crowe film with poor writing, very like something that's repetitive, has been done 1,000 times before. The only twist is that like I think the priests are supposed to kind of portray as the James Bond of their little circle, and it's just more annoying. I mean, I have something very critical of the film that I'll get into the spoiler, but yeah, it's just very typical. Honestly, there's not much that I can tell you non-spoiler wise. Like the directing and everything, it was very basic, and it's something that I would say that it has been done many times before, and it didn't. It just felt like any other film, and it made it less scary for me because of that. And if you watched like I I don't know. It's just, I guess this kind of genre and this type of thing you can remake any times because it eventually gets into a streaming service such as Netflix, like this one, and then you can watch it on a night when you don't have anything else to watch.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think?
Well, watching it, I had time to think because it's such a boring movie.
Lovely.
And so predictable. I had a lot of time to think, and I thought a lot about The Exorcist and how it spawned the genre of exorcism movies that there's been so many, and none of them have been able to even approach the originality, the freshness, and the scariness of The Exorcist, which came out in the 70s,
Yeah.
And this movie felt so tame compared to something like The Exorcist, which I wouldn't say is super scary, but it still has shocking moments, even for audiences today, when you think about it. So you watch a movie like this, and it's just playing out the same tropes of exorcism movies. Projectile vomit, bingo. Words being written from inside someone's stomach, bingo.
Incest?
Yeah. Well, I guess that's part of it. But and then before the movie started, I told you, hey, how much you want to bet that someone's going to crawl on the ceiling? And that happened, there's people on the ceiling. It's really not creative with what it does. I think the opening scene is somewhat creative, but then it's just downhill. There's the trope of the family, trying to renovate like an old building, this old church this time instead of a house. It's set in the 80s for some reason, which really didn't need to be, I guess. For whatever reason, it ties into this real exorcist guy who wrote these books or whatever. Russell Crowe was the most entertaining part because he was doing this kind of over-the-top Italian accent and was like cracking jokes the whole time. So it never really felt like there was real danger because he was just cracking jokes. And then the kid, I think, just wasn't very scary. There were no really interesting set pieces. And then I'll get into spoilers about the ending because it's just a whole other thing. But really, it was just like tired, boring. Like it was okay. Like it was competently made. It wasn't like horrible.
It was just very like
very,
of the same
very,
thing,
very, very, very predictable.
repetitive of the
not scary. Genre. Just like it was a snooze fest. It was very boring to watch.
What would you rate it?
I'd give it a 4 out of 10.
I'm rating lower than you these days, huh?
Well, I just think it's passable. It's just really not original and really dull. So I mean, if you're gonna watch a movie about an exorcist, just rewatch The Exorcist. I mean.
Yeah.
It really was.
Well, I mean, you can watch it. It's not a bad film. It's just very predictable. You're not going to be shocked at what happens, is what I'll say.
It's predictable, and also it's not inventive with anything.
No, it's a very purity culture type of a film, like such as these movies tend to be. Now, spoilers for The Pope's Exorcist. 3, 2, 1. All right. So basically, I really have a criticism about the way that they portray mental health as if like the whole like priest having to deal with it rather than mental health professionals.
Yeah.
Which is Russell Crowe's kind of like a key.
We talked about this, how this is kind of common in the whole genre, basically.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like yucky. And I also don't like how they basically said that a priest was possessed by a demon, and that's why all the Catholic, burning people and all these abuses that we know historically to be wrong happened. So basically taking no accountability. I just love how they erase like real things that happen to people by saying, oh yeah, they must have been possessed by a demon, instead of like they were kind of... It's just kind of like blaming something that you don't understand necessarily, rather than like taking accountability for what has happened in the past, which is a very easy way out. I just thought those things were really yicky. I also didn't really like, it felt like it reminded me of The Haunting of the Hill House, with the idea that this family, although granted the husband had recently died, which is not like the Hill House in the beginning, but this family wants to renovate this mansion so that they can gain money from it to have a better life. And, it was kind of similar to that. And whereas the house is completely haunted and has a dark past and is basically like swallowing them in many ways. I thought this was very similar to that. Again, the incest where the demon wants to have, sex with the mom. I think is very similar to Exorcist, where, the demon wants to have sex with the mom. Which is really interesting because the priest in this film, Russell Crowe, says that mother's love is closest to God's love. It's not always a good thing to be honest with you, depending on what kind of mother you have. So it's not, but I thought it was interesting that they said that. And then the way to taint that, I felt like, was to have sex with the mom. Like, you know, and it's like, okay, I don't know. Sex is such a weird thing. And the second priest in there who played alongside Russell Crowe, his only sin was that he had sex with a girl that he liked, and so he saw like naked, you know, just boobies everywhere, and that's like such a big thing. I don't know, as a person who's not really religious, for me, it's just my perspective of like a foreign kind of concept.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, but like I said, these are the things that you tend to see in these types of movie, right? Like more of a purity. If you don't repent and truly repent, then you're going to be tempted. You know, sex is like this very guarded thing, and really like the big thing that like a devil, quote unquote, tries to do in order to lead you astray from your path in life.
Yeah, but you know, and the movie just doesn't deal with these things in an interesting way. You know, like a lot of these movies deal with these subjects, but like look at The Exorcist. Like that is a movie that's really addressing these problems.
But I think it was the first of its kind,
and the first of its kind.
Like, and I think right now it's really hard for something to be made original when it's like an Exorcist film. Doesn't mean that, honestly, I'm not like anti it being predictable if it was like funny or if the jokes landed, but I just felt like it wasn't funny. It was like very much something that you could fall asleep to.
So, and you know, with horror, I always like return to the Stephen King quote that I really like, is that when he was talking about his books, he says the readers don't need to believe what I'm writing about, but they have to believe that I believe it. You know?
And I didn't believe it.
I didn't believe that these filmmakers bought any of this. I didn't think they were scared by any of this.
Kind of like focusing more on the set pieces a little bit, such as the underground of the house and how those were gonna look, rather than like actually character development.
Yeah.
And it just kind of was, you know, like, it just, I didn't feel like I was invested when I was watching any of it. And I was like, okay, I'm glad that they, like, I guess, escaped the house, but there was nothing that I was, you know, and there's honestly movies that are lesser than this where I have been somewhat invested, like the Haunting series. So yeah, I mean, nothing else to say for me.
Well, I just want to mention that CGI Marvel like fight scene that was at the end of the movie. That was like Constantine. Like it was literally like demons and like things on fire. Like it was like a PS2 cutscene or like a Marvel scene. Like it was just so. Like, really? Like, we were trying to take this movie serious at all? Like, if you're going to go to this kind of ridiculousness, like, they could have at least had fun with the movie, like you were saying. Have, like, kind of a winking tone, be a little campy with it, you know? Just be goofy, like, if you're not going to take any of this seriously, you know?
Exactly,
so, yeah. I just thought it was a total snooze fest, so.
There you go. But if you don't like scary films, then this is not that scary, so you'll probably be fine with it. All right. Well, let us know again what else we should watch. And then with this, it's kind of cool to do 2 movie reviews at the same time. So let us know if you'd like more of it, where we're compounding different types of genres.
Yeah.
Where we're compounding different movies that are the same genre together. So
thank you for watching, everyone.
Thank you for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.